In the heart of Eastern Europe, along the fabled crossroad of the North European plain, lives a people who have time and time again defended not only their homes and their people, but indeed all of Europe from invasion and destruction. The Polish people have stood as a bastion of courage and honor throughout their entire history. Living life along the path of so many invaders bred a hardy people who heeded every call to abandon hearth and family for the sword and battle. In 1920, that call would once again echo throughout the valley of the Vistula. And this time, they wouldn't just be preserving their way of life, but the way of life for all of Western civilization. Shortly after the First World War, the newly refounded Polish state was trying to find its way amidst the turmoil left in the wake of the Great War. Germany was in shambles, with revolution boiling beneath the surface. Russia was resurgent, with the Bolshevik Reds and their unholy hordes having beaten back their opponents. The godless communists, led by Vladimir Lenin, would then set their sights on spreading their ideology of famine, suffering and toil to the rest of Europe. Should Poland fall to communism, the floodgates would open to instigating revolution in Germany and then France, both racked with internal instability at the time. The old allies, beleaguered and indifferent, would offer no aid. Once again, it was up to Poland and her sons to man the wall that guards civilization. Though the Poles fought valiantly, they were forced to retreat out of Belarus. Peace talks yielded nothing, and it was obvious at this point that Vlad and his horde was resolved to infect the whole world with breadlines and beet stew. So the Poles rallied near their capital of Warsaw, dug in, and prepared for the onslaught. However, there was one thing that the Russians did not understand, one thing that they didn't count on, one thing that can't be predicted or measured: the boldness of a people solid in their faith. The Poles appealed to heaven for divine intercession against the communists, who sought to upend their way of life, as well as end the practice of their religion. Processions took place throughout the Warsaw region, with hundreds of thousands pouring into the streets to pray for victory, and to pray for the strength to overcome the seemingly insurmountable odds. The Polish needed a miracle, and a miracle is what was granted. Emboldened by faith and honor, the Polish devised a daring plan of battle that hinged on the success of several maneuvers performed simultaneously. These would aim to outflank the whole Soviet force, cut their lines of supply and communication, and send the Red Rats back to the turnip fields from whence they came. However, this counterattack would be incumbent on stopping the main Russian advance. Heavy fighting ensued around the towns of Radzymin and Osso, changing hands several times. Only one Polish army was left to face down three Russian armies in this area. Perhaps by luck, or perhaps by divine miracle, a single Polish regiment managed to break through Soviet lines and attack a command post. They destroyed the radio station there, leaving the Soviets with only one station remaining, and as fate would have it, Polish intelligence had already broken the code to the remaining frequency. The Poles immediately set about exploiting this advantage and broadcast a continuous reading of the entire Book of Genesis on the remaining Soviet radio frequencies, effectively jamming the Reds' communication with their headquarters. At the same time, the Polish forces near the towns conducted a valiant charge to retake those important crossroads and halt the advance towards Warsaw. The priest, Father Ignacy Skorupka, led the charge from the front lines. Crucifix in hands, he was martyred on the field of battle. However, his sacrifice was not in vain. The Poles would carry the day, thus stopping the Soviets and setting the conditions for the offensive the next day. On that day, August 14, 1920, the faith and bravery of the Polish won a victory when nearly all seemed lost. Over the course of the next few days, the Polish counterattack would unfold exactly as it was prayed for. The pleas and offerings of the Polish soldiers and people would not be in vain, as the overconfident Russians positioned themselves exactly as the Poles predicted. The Polish armies broke through the Soviet lines, outflanking and scattering the Red forces. Many Bolsheviks fled into the countryside, finally showing their true forms as cowardly cockroaches. At the conclusion of the battle, the Red Army had lost 126,000 men to being killed or captured, compared to the 40,000 Polish losses. The stalwart faith and valor of the Polish people halted the Red Tide and ensured that their corrupt and brutal revolution would not be carried to the west upon the bayonets of Russian ideologues. The miracle on the Vistula is still remembered and venerated by the Polish people today, a people that have proved for centuries that through the cross and the sword, they will always return victorious.